everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel. I am Dr. Ashwati. Students, in this lecture, I am going to discuss about a very important thinker from our modern period. This thinker was a freedom fighter and a very popular socialist leader as well. And the name, can you guess? Can you just think about him? Okay, he also served as a member of parliament as well. The name is Ram Manohar Lohia. Ram Manohar Lohia was a very famous writer, a freedom fighter and an activist as well, and he actually is known for coining a very key strategy during the 1967 or that in the period of 60s, like he introduced a concept called non-congressism as well. And let me tell you about him is that he, being a socialist leader, plus he was a staunch critic of the Congress party as well. Ram Manohar Lohia, when we look at his life sketch, this is also a very important thing. He was born on 23rd March 1910 in a Marwadi Baniya family at Akbarpur in modern day Uttar Pradesh. So, he hailed from Uttar Pradesh, and Ram Manohar Lohia was one of the founders of the Congress Socialist Party. In earlier times, like within the Congress party itself, the socialist branch was working. Later on, it emerged as another political party as well. Okay. Then after, he was also the editor of its mouthpiece called the Congress Socialist. And as I have already mentioned that he was a famous journalist, writer and various other things, he was also the founder editor of two other literary works, and that is Mankind and Jan. So, he was actually a kind of a person who remained, or we can say that who kept on writing things, and obviously in this lecture I will be discussing about his books as well. And moreover, he was also a kind of a person who created a non-European centric socialist theory as well. He has written, these are some of his major works: Wheel of History, published in 1955, Guilty Men of India's Partition, published in 1960. Then we have Marx, Gandhi and Socialism in 1963. Then after, India, China and Northern Frontiers, 1963. So, these are some of his important works, and he was actually like a person who stood for he stood in opposition to the English language as well, because obviously being a freedom fighter, it was quite obvious that he wanted that there should be a promotion of the Indian languages. All these things are part and parcel of Ram Manohar Lohia. Now, this is called as the Sapta Kranti, or what we call it as the 7 revolutions. Okay. Sapta Kranti. So, here under 7 revolutions, he has kind of created a kind of an idea about his way of socialism, that what sort of India he wanted to create, plus he, as being a staunch a staunch critique of Congress party, he wanted that there is a new revitalization, or he said that there is a need for a revitalization of the Indian polity, and he was very actively engaged with that of formation of the united opposition group to oppose the Congress in the general elections as well. So, here under 7 revolution, these are very important ones, and in UGC-NET examination they are usually asked. So, it is very important that you have to memorize them. So, we will just check out all the details about these 7 revolutions. First, for equality between men and women. So, he stood for the equality between the sexes. It means that there should be an equality, there should not be a kind of a gender exploitation or anything, that one sex is actually dominating the other. I am not using the term gender, because gender is actually a kind of a what we call it a socially constructed norms are associated with that of gender. Here I am using the biological term, that sexes, between the sexes. He wanted there should be equality between men and women. Okay. So, one should not be at the level of victim and another one should not be that a dominating one. So, he wanted the equality between both sexes, and then he stood for against political, economic and spiritual inequality based on skin color. So, he opposed racism any form of racism or like a kind of a racial discrimination in the name of skin color or any sort of thing, against political, economic and spiritual inequality. He has worked on the ideas of equality as well. So, he stood against any form of political, economic, spiritual inequality based on skin color. Third point, he stood against the inequality of backward and high groups or caste based on long tradition. So, he criticized the traditions, also he criticized the conservatism and for giving special opportunities to the backward. So, he wanted that the special opportunities to be provided for the backward classes because they have been like put in a very severe exploitative condition for a very long time. So, he thought that there is a need for their emancipation. So, here what we understand that he was against the inequality of backward and high group, like the what you call it as the backward caste or classes or whatever you say, okay, any form of exploitation he actually rejected. Then after we have he also stood against the caste based discrimination, caste based like the traditional things which actually put one group of caste as the higher one and the other group of caste as the lower one. So, he wanted that end to the inequality between the castes. So, he wanted to end the inequalities which are existing between the castes. Okay. Against foreign enslavement and for freedom and democratic rule all over the world. So, he was of a person, he was of the opinion that there should be a kind of a like there should like he stood against, we can say he stood against the foreign enslavement as well as any form of imperialism or colonialism. So, he was very quite clear about it. Okay. So, we can say that, and the other points like he stood for like he stood for the freedom and democratic rule all over the world. So, this is also an important contribution by him and this is the fourth Kranti he has spoken about. Then the fifth one, for economic equality and plant production and against the existence of an attachment of private capital. Here, he supported the plant development as well as he stood for economic equality among the people. He was against unjust encroachments on private life. This is one of the most important element about Ram Manohar Lohia, that he did speak about the right to privacy as well. So, he like he stood against the unjust encroachments on private life and he stood for the democratic methods as well, and right to privacy was actually a cardinal principle associated with him. Then after he stood against weapons, so we can say that he called for the disarmament as well as he stood for satyagraha. Okay, so he was a staunch supporter of the satyagraha. Moving ahead, and he also produced a Chaukhamba model or a 4-pillar model, that how you have to create. Earlier we have this like kind of a system of hierarchies like pyramidal hierarchy. So, he actually created a different level of hierarchy. Here you can say that how you have to achieve a kind of a better governance, a kind of a form of decentralization. We can say that like here you can see that how system you have to design here. Okay. So, this is a 4-pillar model, that is why it is called as the Chaukhamba model. So, here first is the village, then comes the district, then the province and finally the center. So, village, then after you have the district, then you have the province, then you have the center. So, here he was actually more into giving more power to the village sector, because he was well aware about the idea that the local needs can be met at the local level itself. So, this was actually considered to be a kind of a model developed by him. And he also in later works, he also thought about creating a world government as well. But yes, obviously, to some extent, he had utopian ideas as well. But yes, Ram Manohar Lohia left a very deep imprint. He was a great leader, a great reformer, activist, politician and a great writer as well. So, students, that's all in this lecture. Stay tuned for more lectures. Bye.